The Chicago Bulls are reportedly finally targeting a defensive-minded center in Yves Missi with the New Orleans Pelicans. If reports are to be believed, is AK just playing it safe again, or is this the best way to really evaluate the next step for the roster? And Josh Giddey could be back sooner rather than we think. We're going to talk about all that plus the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And listen, piggybacking off of something that we talked about yesterday, I talked about 3 young players that the Chicago Bulls could target, and one of those players was Yves Missi. Little did I know, about an hour or two after I posted that episode, it would officially be reported that the Chicago Bulls are making calls on Yves Missi. This one comes from the Dallas Hoops Journal that reports that the Bulls and Indiana Pacers are both considering trades for Yves Missi. Now, this is a player that makes a lot of sense for the Bulls. Now, there's some questions on if Yves Missi can be a long-term starting center. I want to be clear on that. He's 6'11", brings some legit size. He's athletic as hell. He can get up and run in transition. His ability to rim protect, as a shot blocker is a little questionable there, right? But I think overall, Yves Missi is almost the exact type of center that you want on the Chicago Bulls roster. And I think this is one of the moves that the Bulls could make that doesn't necessarily break their assets. It doesn't break the bank. It doesn't drastically change the way that you play or anything like that. Just go over the analytics for Yves Missi, right? When he's on the court, the New Orleans Pelicans' offensive rebounding percentage goes up by 9.2%. He's one of only 3 players in the NBA that the offensive rebounding numbers see an almost double-digit increase as far as percentage when he's on the court. That would be huge for the Chicago Bulls team that doesn't typically get a lot of second chance points. They're not typically an amazing offensive rebounding team. Even though we rank as one of the better rebounding teams in the league, it's mainly defensive rebounds. You now go to make us a better offensive rebounding team, and that's something that could definitely help the Chicago Bulls quite considerably with that. You also look at the on-off numbers for Yves Missi. When he's off the court, the defensive rating goes up to 122 for the Pelicans. When he's on the court, it goes down by 5 points, which is good. You want the lower number for defensive rating to 117. That's really good. Now, that the Pelicans already aren't a great defensive team, so even that 117 is a little bit high. But it just shows the type of impact that he has when he's on the court. They also play a quicker pace when he's on there on the court as well. Their rebounding percentage as a whole, not just the offensive rebounding percentage, but as a whole, goes up 8% when he's on the court as well. Yves Missi is the type of player that I can expect, that I will expect AK to go after. It's a move that's not super big. It's not a superstar level move, and it does get you the style of center that you want. And also, if for some reason you do become a team, you become a team that goes after a different center, you can still find a center of the future. But to get a big that's 6'11" in here that can help this Bulls team, 235 pounds, this is the type of center that I would absolutely love. Many people will go back to, I loved Yves Missi in that draft. I think for where the Bulls were drafting, it would have been a little too high. I wanted them to acquire another pick to try to go out and get him. He was ended up drafted to the 21st pick overall. I thought the Bulls could maybe acquire another pick to get him. They didn't. It is what it is there. But this is a guy that can definitely help the team. He has a positive point differential of 7.8, even for a struggling Pelicans team. And he has an expected wins added of plus 17. Yves Missi is a good basketball player. The question is does he fit in with what the Chicago Bulls doing, and is he enough? Now, I want to be clear to this. I've talked about now what Yves Missi could possibly bring for the Chicago Bulls team. I think also he's also somebody that if you do move on from Vooch, either in this trade or in a different trade, if you keep Zach Collins and Jalen Smith, you now have a 3-headed monster of the big rotation that those guys can all play together. Yves Missi's played in double big lineups. He's played as the power forward. He's played as a center. We already know Jalen Smith has been great as a power forward. You keep Zach Collins in there as well. You have your two-way guy also. I love the concept of that. Now, is it the long-term answer? Probably not. You still need to go out and find your long-term starting center of the future. Make no mistake about it. But I do think Yves Missi brings a lot of what we need. 5.7 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes, almost 3 offensive rebounds in the 18.2 minutes that he does play. The fact of the matter is he's a furious offensive rebounder that can definitely help this Bulls team. So I think he adds in with the switchability. I wouldn't say that I've yet seen from him admittedly that he can like switch on the guards or anything, but he's definitely something that is better than Nikola Vucevic in there. When you look at the ability to play pace and space lineups, Yves Missi, he's everything Nikola Vucevic is. That's just what it is. All of Yves Missi's strengths or where Nikola Vucevic's weaknesses are. And if you believe in Jalen Smith, who I think has to be part of this as well, not in the trade, but if you keep Jalen Smith at 6'8" and what he's done offensively for the Bulls and in rim protection, the 3-point, he's making 33.8% of 4.1 threes per game. Not great, but for a modern big, that's pretty damn good. So that's the question that you have into this one. I love the concept. I love hearing that the Bulls are now, or could be, again, per if rumors, take every rumor with a grain of salt, but if this is to be believed and they really are targeting Yves Missi at this trade deadline, who is reportedly available because the Pelicans now have Derek Queen. They're looking to develop him as their young center going forward to the future. There was some thought that I had at the beginning of the season to where I thought that they wouldn't move Yves Missi because you could play him. But now hearing that they're also committed to keeping Zion, that could leave Yves Missi on the outside looking in, and the Bulls could slide in there. And it could only take the Portland pick. The Bulls technically can absorb all the salary of Yves Missi right now, and they wouldn't have to match salary to get Yves Missi in there. He's only on the second year of his rookie scale deal, so you still got 2 more years left on top of that before you have to extend him. You can still find your center of the future. If Yves Missi ends up just being a backup for you, that's not bad at all. I love it. I think this guy catching lobs from Josh Giddey would be great. He's 21 years old on top of everything else. Hearing this, I love the concept of Yves Missi because I don't think that he's going to be a huge trade for the Bulls. But I want to talk about why the Bulls could be looking for this. And this is going to be the part that some Bulls fans aren't going to agree with me or just don't like to hear. If the Bulls make this smaller move for Yves Missi, I do think that even with all the trade rumors around Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White, that you could very well see the Bulls keep almost everything else together. Maybe still trade Vooch in a subsequent trade, outside of whatever you have to give up for Yves Missi. But I think that this is a type of trade that AK would do because now you're inserting a player that brings the style of play that you want from your modern center. It gives you more ability to evaluate the backcourt of Josh Giddey and Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu and their fit. And this could be a move that the Bulls make at the trade deadline and then say, all right, the remaining 29 games, 30 games or whatever's left after the trade deadline, let's evaluate this team with this type of center in place. And then we can make our determination on who we want to keep. How much does that help? If we can find a better caliber of player and draft somebody that can be more of a two-way, whatever it is, I think that that's the thing that you're going to get to. It gets you a player that changes your style of play in the ways that you need it by bringing defense, but it gives you an ability to evaluate the pieces that you currently have on this roster and see if truly that defensive center helps this core take off a little bit more, whereas you're missing some other things, right? I know this is not what Bulls fans want to hear, but this is a type of trade that is in AK's wheelhouse, absolutely, right? So, keep in mind, the Bulls are still in evaluation. It still seems to me like they are still hesitant to move off of some of the other core pieces, the pieces that they have labeled as cores. And we'll see what happens with that one. But hearing that Yves Missi is on the Bulls' radar and that so much so that they are expected by the Dallas Basketball Journal to go out and make a move for him, we got to see what's going to happen here. And so it's these type of moves that even with all the trade rumors and things, that these type of moves are the ones that are a lot more likely for the Chicago Bulls because I just don't see, the Bulls going all in on the star. I don't see them trading 3 first-round picks for somebody like Trey Murphy. But if you can get Yves Missi for a lower-end first or maybe a couple seconds, maybe a future first that's lottery protected out to 2031 and just the matching salary or absorb him into your trade exception, which then creates a trade exception for the Pelicans, that could be the type of move that we see AK realistically make. But let me know what you guys think down below on the prospect of Yves Missi coming to the Chicago Bulls. Is this the type of player that the Bulls should go after? Again, considering you don't have to give up a lot for him. So let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that said, the other piece of news that we have before we get into the mailbag, Josh Giddey is practicing with the Windy City Bulls. He's officially been assigned to the Windy City Bulls today for Sunday. If he makes it through this practice without soreness or anything else that kind of limits him, you could very well see him cleared to return to the court either Tuesday or Thursday's game for the Chicago Bulls. He's not going to play today with this assignment, But this means this is the closest thing to getting him a live practice with the Windy City Bulls and then seeing what the next steps are for his return. So this is kind of the last step. Like I said, he's going to be about a week behind of the original 2-week timeline, but 3 weeks for a hamstring injury isn't that bad to be out. So the Bulls play Tuesday against Los Angeles in Chicago, and then they go out on the road against Minnesota on Thursday. You're probably, if as long as we don't hear any setbacks from Josh Giddey from this practice, you're probably a safe bet to think that Josh Giddey's going to be back in one of those games, which is good. The Bulls want to continue to get closer and closer to full health so they can use whatever time's remaining from then to the trade deadline to continue to make their determination, their evaluations. Zach Collins is probably unlikely to return back by the trade deadline. If he does, maybe a week before, week and a half before. But, you want this team to continually get every step closer to being healthy that they can get. And that's the thing for this team, because I still do think, despite what my brother JDH said in the comments, a little shot to JDH there, the injuries still have played a really big part in where this team is, and you want that to be clear as possible. But also, like I said before, you cannot wait until everybody's healthy to make a determination on the next steps for your roster. You just can't. So we'll see what happens. We shall see what's going to happen with this team. We'll see what they're going to do, and we'll see if they can get something done. But that's it for that part. Let's go ahead and get into the mailbag for today. We got 4 voicemails to get into. This one's from Josh.
Yo, what's going on, Chicago Bulls Central? Haize, how y'all doing? I just got done listening to today's episode Saturday, voicemail calls and whatnot. And one caller that I know you didn't agree with, Haize, but I kind of like his idea was Reginald talking about trading for Trey Murphy III. It's including 3 first-round picks and a young player and whatnot. I'm not going to lie, I do like Trey Murphy III. I think he's a very supremely talented player and would help us a lot. I think 3 first-round picks is a lot to give up, and plus a young player is a lot to give up as well. However, if we was able to, let's say, throw Patrick Williams in the deal, like Patrick Williams and Noah Essingay plus, the Portland pick, and then maybe 2 later, first round picks, later years, not 2026. But if we was able to get off Patrick Williams in that trade, and I did check it on the trade calculator just to make sure that it kind of makes sense. Noah Essingay plus Patrick Williams, their contracts kind of equal around like $24 million. And Trey Murphy is getting paid $25 million. So it's because of their contracts line up, kind of. So, do you think the Pelicans will be interested in that? If we was still giving them 3 first round picks, you think they'd take Noah Essingay plus Patrick Williams for Trey Murphy? I think that would be a cool idea, killing 2 birds with 1 stone and whatnot. But let me know what you think. Have a good one. Oh, and bear down. Go Bears.
All right, let's be clear, right? By a young player, they don't mean just any young player, right? I just want to be clear in that. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what you thought, Josh, but Patrick Williams does not count in that. Patrick Williams is still a negative asset, so if you include Patrick Williams in a trade, you're probably going to have to include something else to sweeten the spot for them, especially with now 2 years remaining on his contract at $18 million. So if you're going to try to include P. Will in a trade for the Pelicans, you're probably going to have to include a couple of seconds, maybe even another protected first if you're going to want to do that. So I just want to be clear there. The unprotected picks, though, that's a lot to send for a player like Trey Murphy, unless you're 100% sure you're going to be a top 5 to 6 team in the East. That's what you have to be sure that by trading for Trey Murphy, you believe that you are becoming one of the top 5 to 6 teams in the Eastern Conference, and that at minimum, right? So I think the 3 unprotected first is a lot to give up, and I'll say that for any player. It would be different if the Bulls already were a team that had a playoff run, right? That went with this roster on a playoff run. Maybe they were a competitive first round and they got out in the first round, or maybe they made it to the second round, got swept in the second round. Then you're more apt, right? It's a lot to give up, and this is saying that I say across all my shows. It's a lot to give up a bunch of picks just to become a playoff team. That is very risky and usually bites teams in the ass when they do that. Now, health is a thing for the Bulls. Where would we be if we were fully healthy? All that type of stuff is a fair question, but that's just a lot to give up for a player in Trey Murphy, even in including a P. Will to get off that money again, because you're going to probably have to include something else in that case. Like, I love Trey Murphy as a prospect. I love adding him to this team, even if it meant giving up Kobe. I like adding Trey Murphy to this team. And then you have, Josh Giddey, probably Io at the 2, Trey Murphy at the 3, Modest at the 4. You can move Trey Murphy to the 2, Modest to the 3. You find a port. Like, it's permutations of that deal that I like, right? I just think giving up 3 first-round picks for where the Bulls currently are and a young player is a hell of a lot to give for a team that hasn't even been above 500 yet. That's just my thought process on that. But again, I understand people being willing to go all in on Trey. I definitely understand that. I just, again, take the more kind of pessimistic approach, right? So we'll see. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Vikram.
I'm really disappointed in how Billy Donovan is not letting Modest shoot any mid-ranges. I've probably seen maybe 2 that he's taken all year. That's genuinely ridiculous. When it's stupid. It's like I get it. You might want to be slowly building it, like into his game, but there've been so many times where he could just rise up in the mid-range and get a bucket. Instead, he brings it out or swings it out to Trey Jones and sets him the screen. Like, what kind of stupid bullshit is Billy Donovan teaching Modest sometimes? Like, I like how he's brought him slow in his development and added small things every single couple months. But for him not to be allowed to shoot a mid-range is stupid. It's just dumb. I don't know how else to say it other than what does he, I don't understand what Billy Donovan is thinking. I get it. You can tell him, hey, don't force mid-ranges or don't try to operate out of the mid-range. But if there's some pull-up midi or just easy rise up over a small defender, why wouldn't you be allowed to shoot that shot? What's wrong with you taking that shot? I don't get what Billy Donovan is trying to get at with that. Yeah, I was just annoyed with that.
Billy Donovan cutting out the mid-range just makes no sense for the Bulls, right? I'm not saying that we have to be a heavy mid-range shooting team where 30% of our shots are mid-range, but for only 4% of our total shots to be in the mid-range, it makes no sense. Be between 15, 18%, 20% maybe at the most, right? And that's just to keep defenses honest. It's just to add to the fluidity of how you run your offense and the shot selection. That's just what I look at with that one. It's crazy that's the balance of our shot diet, is that we've basically just said F that. Not even just for Modest, but as a team, we're at this place where we just said F the mid-range shots. Just for comparison, the Boston Celtics take, I think, the second most three-pointers in the league, but almost 15% of their shots are in the mid-range. Almost 15% of their shots are in the mid-range. So it's those type of things that I look at for the Bulls and say, why don't we take more mid-range shots? We should be taking more of those shots. That's just my personal opinion of it. I just think we should be taking more. It doesn't make any sense. It's one of those Billy Donovan isms, and it seems like an overcorrection to the DeMar DeRozan era here, right? It just seems like an overcorrection of that to me personally, but hey, you guys can let me know how you feel down below. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald calling up from the Boston and that. And I know what a lot of Bulls fans are saying. Fire Billy. He doesn't know what he's doing. And they're not wrong. I mean, how many times have you seen him do this? For how many years? He doesn't learn. Any, honestly, above average coach that's is going to embarrass him in the playoffs. Which is why, even if the Bulls make the playoffs, they're going to have to win in spite of him. When I was looking at I want to say, documentary they had on YouTube about Derrick Rose and how there was times his jersey, part 2. I've never seen a coach, Joakim, and they were just going over some of the great plays that they made. They weren't doing that in spite of Tom Thibodeau. They were doing it in part because of him, because he put them in there. a great position to win. And Billy Donovan's not putting his team in a great position to win. Like I say, you have to win. Part of his bad decisions, part of his bad lineup. And AK is not much better because he built the team. And when he sees a weakness, he doesn't address it in a due time before. Part of me thinks he's not going to try to go out there and get another defensive big. Part of me thinks he's going to just wait until Zach Collins gets healthy and hope for the best. I think he did that with Lonzo. He could have gotten better help for the bench when the Bulls did have Zach, DeMar, and Boots all the same team. You know, there were some weaknesses there that he never addressed. And I think he's just going to repeat the same process over and over again. And that's just his pattern. What do you think? Are the Bulls going to stay at the trade deadline? Billy Donovan going to continue to mediocre, I think. Let's hear me out.
First of all, Reggie, I want to say, what the hell was going on in your background, bro? Were you washing dishes? Like, what the fuck was going on back there? Call in better conditions, bro. But you aren't wrong that sometimes we do have to win in spite of Billy Donovan. I think that that's fair. I think most Bulls fans that are objective would tell you, yeah, they've seen those things too. We've had to win in spite of Billy Donovan sometimes. Now, there are some things that Billy Donovan has done that absolutely has helped the Bulls team. But, yeah, for sure, we have had to win in spite of Billy Donovan. So, listen, the thing about Billy, we could talk about Billy Donovan all day long. I had a whole episode on the positives and negatives and why it's time for the Bulls to move on, things that he does as a coach. But until this front office, until ownership is ready to prioritize a coach that puts you in a better position to win, it is what it is. I think that, Billy Donovan he's a perfectly serviceable coach. But at some point, you need more than just serviceable. That's just my personal opinion. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Haize? It's Shay. I've been sitting back thinking about something. People have been saying, oh, we're going to make a trade. And some people say they don't believe we're going to make a trade or whatnot. I'm here to tell you. We might make one little small trade, but don't expect nothing super big. Because I don't know if you remember what AK said. Now, we can't take everything he said seriously because he be sometimes talking outside of his neck a little bit. But I do believe that they want to be big players in free agency come 2026. They said it in off-season of 2024, and I do believe that they really want to look to a 2026 where they can make real big moves, like where they can have cap flexibility, because a lot of expiring contracts are on our roster. So I do believe they may make a little bit of some noise, but don't expect no real big moves from them going forward. That's just my opinion. Probably not, but I do think that they want to be big players in the 2026 free agency because that's all they talked about this upcoming season. And, we're heading into the off season. After this season's over of 2026, and I think that they want to be real big players. That's when they'll finally get the personnel that they want. That's just me. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
I think that more than anything that they appreciate the flexibility, right? I don't think that they have to wait because the free agents class in 2026 isn't great. I don't think that about having cap flexibility in 2026 was just about signing free agents. It's about what it allows you, the fluidity in deals, the flexibility in taking more salary back in deals, making a trade for a player that may be disgruntled on another team and just sending picks back, not have to sitting in part of your core. I think it's all those type of things. So I do think that this team, this front office would be willing to make a big move now if it's the type of player they would want in the offseason anyway and get a jump start on that. But I do think the more common thing is what you said, is making a smaller, more reasonable move a la Yves Missi, which we talked about at the top of the show. I do think that that's the more likely scenario for this Bulls team. And I know that's not what Bulls fans want to hear, but I do think that is the most likely thing that we see from this team. And we'll just see what's going to come of it. We'll see what they end up doing with their flexibility. It could be nothing. They could end up running most of it back. We'll see, right? But that's it. Another day, another conversation about where this franchise could be headed, but we need to see actual direction on the basketball court. Do you love the idea of Yves Missi, or do you want to see the Bulls go on an even bigger swing? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm going to read all of them as I always do. Make sure you're following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.